All right, welcome everyone. Fabulous to have you all here. I'm doing that multitasking thing already where I sort of glancing to the right and seeing the names of the people that are coming into the room. It's always a lovely joy when you run a bit of a webinar like this that I can see who you are. You sort of are stuck with not being able to see each other. So I get that wonderful bit of being able to look and go, that person's in here. But no one else knows you're here. So you're nice and safe, I guess, from that weird professional angle, because I get that it's not a regular situation to come along and have a chat about this notion of becoming our next Real Schools expert facilitator. It'd actually be our 7th. So if you include me in the gang, and we do, then you'd be our 7th person who would be joining the team and delivering our amazing Real Schools partnerships all around Australia. We try to work with you to try and make sure that we keep as many as possible, as close to you as we can. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that one of the joys also is being able to get out there and get outside your own bubble and get outside your own postcode and see a little more of what's happening in the country around schools. And it allows us to certainly keep a really valuable pulse check on what's happening in the community. So what am I going to do today? I'm going to try and, I guess, give you a bit of an idea of, first of all, fit. So we're going to have a look at who you are and what your ambitions are in your work and in your career, and even explore a little of why you'd make a decision to do something as radical as give away a job as incredible as a principalship. And we want to be really clear that all of the expert facilitators who've joined Real Schools have made that decision the hard way. It should be a really hard gig to let go of. And so we're really clear about the fact that we don't want someone who's burnt out and jaded and annoyed with schools and annoyed with systems and angry at the world and schools. We want this decision to become an expert facilitator and to join our incredible team. We want it to be a hard one for you. And so we figure to do that, you deserve a little more information than, for instance, just a job description that you download online, and to then get to work on a lengthy document that you would need to send through for an application and then go through that application and interview process. We do it a little differently. We do it a little more streamlined. And I want to make sure that you get information on that. So we're going to talk about you, we're going to talk about us, we're going to talk about the process, we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits, and then I'll get out of your hair because you might have some work to do after this webinar. So I'll get cracking. Let's start with you. The first thing that I do want to do is acknowledge, as I said, the journey to becoming a principal. It's my kind of, in some ways I feel a little bit wrong saying it, but it's kind of life's work, despite the fact that I've been running Real Schools now for about 11 years. I still look back on the 2 principalships, the 2 substantive principalships anyway, that I had as work that almost defined me as a person and an educator. But I did find myself at a really interesting juncture in my career. You see, my journey to principalship had been quite linear and almost expected, even though it was quite a quick journey. I became a principal at about 35 years of age. And I'd always known what the next step in my career was going to be. So you become a teacher, you enjoy that for a while, you take on a few informal responsibilities, you become a senior teacher. You might then start to eye off some assistant principal level roles, and I ended up in a role that was kind of at that level, but at a system level, helping out in a project in the department. But put myself back into schools as a substantive assistant principal, and then the EOI type principalship, and then the substantive principalships come along, including a principalship that I had the amazing opportunity to open a brand new school, and did it with the incredible general manager that we have at Real Schools, Marnie Richards, who's now part of this team. And I always sort of, the next step was always quite logical until then. And what I found was that I had some conversations with some exec directors at the time around what my next career move was going to be after the new school had been established. And it was the very first time that I found trepidation. I was being asked and encouraged to step into roles such as, I guess those director type roles within the department. And it was the first time that a lump grew in my throat about the next opportunity because it wasn't one I wanted to take. I found myself in a real sort of, in a pickle because there was issues there for me around, well, what am I going to do? There's at least another 20 odd years of my career to go at a minimum. Am I going to stay in the principal role? Am I going to just move from school to school? Am I going to avoid the next step? Or then it was put to me that there was another opportunity, another option, and that was create your own next step. And that's where the notion of Real Schools was born. It came out of knowing that I could do the job, knowing that I could do the job well, but wanting something else. And I've got a funny feeling that's probably why you are here, is that your journey is possibly a similar one, and that you found yourself with principal experience through a reasonably linear path. And now you might be doing a little bit of the so what, now what conversation in your head about what you can do next. And we want you to know that there's an opportunity for you to be able to walk a path that we've carved that is a different direction, but allows you to fulfill some really deep purpose about working in education, and also in a way that allows you to be fully self-expressed in what you know and the impact that you can have. And we think that's an opportunity that's worth exploring. So to give you a bit of an idea of us, you had an idea of my career there in education, and a little bit about Real Schools and where we're from. We're 10 or 11, like I said, about 11 years old now. It began very much as a one-man band, although that's also a little untrue. I, for a large part of the journey at Real Schools, have had incredible administrative assistants along the way. The wonderful Chris has worked for me for about 8 or 9 of those years. And a little cheerio to Chris if she happens to be beaming in. She's in hospital. She's unwell at the moment. And our thoughts are very much with her. It's a real wraparound team thing at Real Schools, and we really, really care about each other. And so our thoughts are with Chris at the moment. She's a bedrock of this entire organisation. But about 4 or 5 years ago, I made a really important decision in Real Schools, and it was at a point where Chris and I had been able to fill my diary. It was at a point where we'd made commitment around not just dropping workshops on schools and then running away, but staying and having impact across a model that's a 3-year partnership that's now being rolled out by far more people than I in the organisation, which is incredibly exciting to know that we've built something that can be replicated by people who are high performers such as school principals. But that decision was that we were going to flip what is essentially a practice model of a business and flip it into a genuine business. And there are all sorts of challenges that come along with that. Staffing, how you find the right people, and that's part of what we're doing tonight. There are all sorts of challenges around training and understanding what your needs are, understanding what your roles are that are required in the business. But over the last probably 3 years of that journey, we've been able to sort of, I guess, clunk the dials on the safe into the right position. And we've unlocked something that has some genuine momentum. We tried some different things along the way. We tried some different projects. And one of the things we've had to learn about a business is that not everything we try works, which in a lot of ways is a little different to a school. We try really hard to make the decisions we make in a school work. If we commit to a program, we stick at it by hook or by crook sometimes until we get it done. Whereas in business, we let those things go much more quickly and get focused on the things that we know do work and can have an enormous impact. As a result, we've moved from, in a really short period, like I said, over that 3 to 5 year period, from a model that had me working continuously in schools with about 30 to 40 different schools at really busy times, to now having close to 140 active schools in partnerships all around Australia, and around 200 schools in alumni who've finished up their partnerships with us and are either running it themselves or staying in touch a little more informally along the trip. And it's exciting. One of the things that's happened around, we think, the pandemic is that schools have kind of emerged from an ordeal, and we've often equated that to Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, that we think they've emerged with the elixir, which is what happens in Campbell's journey at the end, is you kind of have this moment where you go, right, this was the thing. This was the thing that really mattered all along. And it's often something that when you started, you'd kind of lost a little bit. And we think a lot of schools are emerging with this belief and understanding that it was the people all along, having a plan for the people, developing a culture that's kind of tilted in the favor of people succeeding and thriving, and giving your programs and your objectives a fighting chance of being achieved and being successful is what it's all about. And we're so proud that we've been able to develop an approach to that that people enjoy running as expert facilitators. I got a text message today from the incredible Cassie Catani, who's one of our expert facilitators, who's been with us for probably 2 or 3 years now. It was just a photo of her in one of her partner schools today with a line underneath it that just said, "I love this job." So not only is it a good job to do, but it's a job that we know we have impact. We've been able to, by scaling, be able to measure some of that impact and be able to not just do it through positive case study, but do it statistically as well. And we know we're onto something that's making an enormous difference for schools. And we know that the game of being able to keep up with the demand of schools who are realizing that has gotten a little harder for us to play. And so what we've needed to do is scale our ability to deliver, and we've had to staff at a higher level. And so both the expert facilitator side of the Real Schools business and what we call the business ops team, the support team in the background that allow us to focus on the work that really matters, has both had to scale really quickly. And as a result, here we are at a role briefing in November. So to give you an idea of the job, what it is that you would be doing if you decided to put in an application and we decided that you and us were a really good fit, is that you would be working with between 25 and 30 schools at any one time, which we think is really great because you get the opportunity to work in the areas that you're, I guess, most passionate about, and that the areas that most principals would consider for themselves as being core business. And what we think we've been able to do in the job is to distill it into something far more simpler than your current role. I know that the metaphors that I hear when I talk to principals these days about what it's like to be a principal are things like, "Oh, I'm wearing too many hats," or I often hear one about spinning plates, that it feels like I'm this plate spinner at the circus and I spend no more time on any one objective than another, and as a result it feels like I'm not doing anything not doing deep work, not giving anything the attention that it needs to really succeed. I'm just trying to keep things going. And what we've been able to do is to distill it down into 2 key areas, and that's basically to help us to sell and deliver partnerships, our school culture partnerships. They are that 3-year model, and the writing that you can see there in the yellow on the screen, and I will walk through that with you in just a moment, makes that clear. That what I do want to do is point out that the sell and the deliver are quite different. The sell part, you're not required to sell all of your partnerships. That's a team effort. So as an example, at the moment, myself and our incredible head of partnerships, Simon Dewar, who's online today, and I don't know, he may even go to the chat box in a minute and say good day and put his details in there if you'd like to contact him. I'll just make sure that I've got the chat box open so I can see whether he does that or not. So Simon's amazing, and between the two of us, we do, for instance, all of the meetings with schools that effectively any other business would call a sales meeting. So we meet with them. We do a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure that that we've got schools that are available to work with you. I do a lot of conference speaking. I write books, and we do a lot of work to make sure that we've always got a lot of schools who are interested in knowing about the work that we can do, and that's really cool. And as a team, we talk all the time about how we can contribute to continuing to scale. We know we can't fulfill our mission, and I'll talk more about that shortly, unless we are a successful business, unless we're able to actually get out there and help as many schools as we possibly can. So the sell part, not the smell, the sell part in the partnerships model is small. The big part is deliver. What we want you to do is to get to know each and every one of these 25 to 30 schools, to be a critical friend, to be a partner, to walk with them side by side. We run a little meme here that is that any school that thinks we're a service provider is a school we're not doing our job for. We're bolted on, to every single one of our partner schools. We love them. We like to think they love us and having us around. And the kind of work you would be doing is things like running in each year a professional learning day for them. And it's built around the IP, I guess, is built around, here's one I prepared earlier, a book called Restoring Teaching. Now, if you don't have a copy of that book, my high recommendation to you is that you jump on the Real Schools website and go to the book section, because in there is the opportunity to get yourself a free copy of it. You just pay the postage and handling. It's essentially the curriculum of what we do and what we teach our schools to do. It's inspired by restorative practices. It's a model that we call RP 2.0. And it's about helping schools to flip a paradigm that's been incredibly unhelpful to them. And that is that they've been asked to do too much. You've been asked to do too much. You've been asked to take on really big things that change things and improve things in your school just a little. And we completely deny that and turn that around. What our model is built around is small shifts in language, in conduct, and in mindset that have the potential in any school to have make a significant difference. And noticing, as I am in the list today, there are partner principals who are in the list. Just going through, I can see a couple of them there. So I can see more than a couple of them in there. And they'll be aware that that's the focus of this work. And we think that brings you into a really fabulous, deep purpose where you have an enormous impact with schools. You'll also follow up each of those in-class days, each of those professional learning days with an in-class support day, which actually puts you in the classrooms. So if you imagine doing 30 schools, that's 30 times a year you're going to spend a day on the tools, modeling for teachers, co-teaching with them, providing them feedback, doing all of that work that you probably wish you had time to do right now. And we all find that an incredibly rewarding, but also an important part of the job. It's certainly in our partner schools, a lot of them report to us that that's when the rubber hits the road. You're going to provide leadership mentoring, where we're going to build action plans and front-facing documentation. You're going to coach teachers. You're going to get parents on side. Such an important thing these days in schools to run parent sessions. We run one a year. A lot of them are online these days. Sort of COVID forced us online, but then we had a significant spike in parents who come along when we provide the online option. So a lot of schools are staying with that now and running it just like I'm doing it now, using some eCam software to stick your head inside a PowerPoint slide. We're really keen on delivering great content when we're online and when we're using video, and making sure that we're always presenting it at our very best. You're going to provide advice. You're going to be a friend. And the other thing you're going to do is make us better. The job of being a principal, whether you realise it or not, is a job that instills or engineers or kind of develops within you a pretty incredible body of intellectual property. And we would like to think that the world needs access to that. So you'll be doing things like writing blogs and articles, recording videos. You might even have a book in you. And we'd be really keen to work with you about what that can look like, and to make sure that the work you do with Real Schools is kind of legacy work on not only just a school that you'd be working in now, but on the education system in Australia. And we think that's an exciting proposition. A bit about the benefits of becoming a Real Schools expert facilitator. The orange points here, I guess, are a little more personal benefits, and then the yellow are a little bit more of the tin tacks of how it works from here in terms of making sure that the benefit isn't just in the heart, but it's in your pocket as well. So one is that you'll do work you love in the areas that you can genuinely say are your purpose. I think, and the expert facilitators at Real Schools tell me, that it's an incredibly liberating job, that it's a job where you get to live out the things that are the reasons you decided to walk into school leadership for. And unfortunately, what I think we find in Australia is a lot of school leaders get into school leadership and then go, oh, yeah, and they find themselves busy, and they find their days ruled by a to-do list rather than by their deep purpose and the work that they know makes a genuine difference. And so what we do is emancipate you from all that administrivia and say, let's just do the stuff that you're really, really good at. And let's, by freeing you with so much time, allow you to work with multiple schools to scale your impact. And that goes to probably the fourth dot point there. You will have leave a bigger footprint on the education system in this country by becoming an expert facilitator at real schools than you will by being a principal. As I said to you, the seminal work for me was being a principal. Absolutely loved it. But this is the work that I know real schools is making a difference that's bigger than I could ever have hoped for as a principal. As a result of stepping into something that's pretty new and pretty different, that's not on that linear line of a career path, you grow. Every one of our expert facilitators speaks constantly to the new things that they're learning. And I guess that's the thing about being a school leader, isn't it? That we are all kind of learning junkies. We really get off on it. We love it. We love the notion of being able to do something new and create something new. As I mentioned, Marnie, who was a business manager in schools for, I think, about 15 years or so, says that the thing that she loves most about this role is the creative opportunity that sits within it and the growth that comes from that. And I hope that gives you a glimpse into what it's like to be a team member here. I always said to people that because I got to ask regularly when I left my principal role, do you miss it? Do you miss being a principal? What is it about schools that you really miss? And the thing that I missed the most was being part of a team. I'm really glad I did those hard yards, because one of the great parts about being in a private entity like a small education business like Real Schools is that we get to pick our team and we get to pick it based on our own criteria. And as a result, we can say things up front like we're just looking for fit. We don't have a matrix that we have to tick off certain schools against certain selection criteria. We're able to say, no, this is our kind of person. They're going to contribute incredibly well to our team and help us with our enormous and worthy mission. We've got it up on the wall of the office in here, that we want to get school culture to the top of your school's improvement agenda, but we also want it at the top of the Australian school improvement agenda. And I understand that it can sound a little sometimes like we're flirting with the tall poppy syndrome when we say that we want to transform education in Australia, but we do. We really do. We really do. We're clear about it, we're determined about it, and we're not stopping until we get it done. It will require us attracting people like you. And we think that once you make that decision to step over that threshold, it'll be something that excites you as much as us, and that you'll be able to, I guess, defeat that tall poppy myth and say, no, I'm a part of changing education in Australia. From a tin tax point of view, one thing we can guarantee you is that you are not going to take a drop in pay. So whatever the level is that you're at, if we decide that you're a good fit, and we're shaking hands, and I'll give you more in just a moment about the process involved in putting your hand up for this role, is that we have a conversation that's frank and slightly icky and awkward about money. I'll ask what your current level is and what your current salary is, and what we do is say that we are at a bare minimum going to match it. And what we'll also do in 12 months' time from that point, if we're all nodding and saying this is wonderful work and everything's going along nicely, and so far we're 0 from 7 on people who've walked out of the expert facilitator role, so that we think that's a good sign. What we'll do after 12 months is increase your salary by $10,000. And I think the other benefit of working in Real Schools is that you'll continue to work hard. Simon always points out that he thinks that his job provides him with just the right amount of stress, which is a little lower than his previous job, but also not super low. There's pressure, and we know that high performers enjoy that. But what we will do is allow you to have some flexibility around your hours that you haven't had before. There'll be times as an expert facilitator that you'll need to jump on a plane on a Sunday afternoon. You need to wave goodbye to your family when you'd rather be watching a game of football, and you'll go and deliver in another part of the country. But when you do come back on get home at 10 o'clock on Tuesday night, you'll have choices about what time you want to start work on Wednesday, about whether you want to knock off early on a Friday and go and have lunch with your partner, so that because you got your working week done. We are an incredibly high trust organisation when it comes to time, because we know that you're already arriving in the role with high work ethic, and we think that that needs to be respected. I always said that when I left my principalship, one of the little moments that I guess I had that was incredibly affirming at a really tricky time for me was going along and being at my daughter's school assembly. She was in year 6, and realising that it was the first one I'd been to, because I was always running my own when her school's assemblies were on. I've always worked just as hard as since I started real schools as I did as a principal, but I get to work my way, and I get to have that flexibility, and it's something that I'm incredibly determined the entire team at real schools experiences as well. So if that sounds like something that could work for you, if it sounds like something that you don't want to miss out on, the process from here is really simple. It's 5 steps, and you've already done step 1. So you showed up to this briefing, or you've at least watched the video and gotten this far into it without switching off. So there's only 4 left. The next one's probably the tricky one, the big one. It's a commitment from you. What we don't do at real schools is provide you with 8 selection criteria and all of this sort of mumbo jumbo and hoops that you need to jump through. We figured there's 2 ways that we could decide whether you are someone that we need to have a conversation with. You are someone that we can't walk by. And we figure the best way that you can demonstrate that is through these 2 actions. One is a 5-minute video, and we ask you to do no more than 5 minutes. So that's not 7 minutes, if that makes sense. In that video, what you would do is talk to us about yourself and your history. You talk to us about your working achievements and your passions, and you talk to us about why you think you're a really good fit for what we do. Why would you be an amazing expert facilitator at real schools? Now, why do we ask for it by video? Because we do get the awkwardness about that. And we do also understand that in partnership, the professional learning day isn't the be all and end all, because it actually isn't the part where the work gets done, where the implementation is evident in our bias. But the whole thing can't run without it. And so what we want to know is that you're capable of being able to deliver a message across a few minutes in such a way that we want to listen to it. So it doesn't need to be professionally produced. You don't need graphics around it. You're allowed to put your iPhone on a bookshelf and hit record. We just want to know you. We just want to get to know you and get to know how good a fit you are. And if you would find a way to send that through to Simon, we'd really appreciate it. Send it with a 1-page CV. Now, you can send it in a multitude of different ways. You can upload it to a private YouTube or Vimeo link and send that through. You can drop the file into a Dropbox or Google Doc and send us the link to be able to access that. You can get in touch with Simon by the details that he's put in the chat box here, or the email address that's on the screen there. And we'll just find a way to get that video from you to us. And the 1-page CV needs to just give us a little idea of your working history and education and what are your major achievements. Like I said, the principal experience piece is one that is really important to us. We did have someone actually with a couple of the ads for this role briefing online say, I don't think you should be doing that. I don't think you should be limiting it to just principals. And we, to a point, agree that there are assistant principals out there who could do this job and who could do it really, really well, I reckon. But there's something about having sat in the big chair that when we talk to principals about the partner that will be coming to join them, there's something about that for them knowing that that person has experienced what they're going through and can show genuine professional and personal empathy towards that. That means that the principal experience thing is a deal breaker for us. So we really need to know what is that principal experience and where's it led you? What's it led you to think? So if you could send that through to Simon, as quickly as possible. I've done that thing of now forgetting the date, that's the closing date. So Marnie, I reckon you're on the webinar here. If you would jump into the chat box and put the closing date and time for that there for everybody, and then I'll read it out in just a moment for people who are listening to this as a recording. And so what Simon will do upon receiving that from you and having closed off at that time and date is what he'll do is reach out to people whose video and whose CV compels him. He's our first pass on this, and his judgment is something that's trusted explicitly within Real Schools. And so you'll talk to Simon. He'll want to get to know you a little better and have a good yarn with you. It's not something we call a job interview. We treat appointment to Real Schools as a project. And what Simon will do at that point, thank you, Marnie Richards, for jumping in there for me. The closing date is 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, okay, on Monday, the 20th of November. So you've got a good couple of weeks from now. I think Monday might be the 21st of November, if looking at my calendar makes sense to me. So 5 p.m. on Monday, the 21st of November. So once you get to that point, Simon will have a chat with you. And what will happen is Simon will hand you a position prospectus. So it'll be a really detailed document. It's a document with a lot of text that you can, for instance, take home and share with a partner. But it's also a document that has some QR codes on there that once you scan them sitting there with a partner, you'll see videos of key members within the team explaining different parts within the team in much more detail for you. And once you've had a chance to explore that, you and I get back together. In the end, it has to be something that you and I can look at each other and say, this is a really good idea. And we'll make sure that there's good time put aside for that. If I can get into your company, Marnie just corrected it with a smile, 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I still reckon she's putting EST, but it's daylight time on the 21st of November. And you and I will get together to have that conversation where we can eyeball each other, where we can smile, we can shake hands and say, this is an opportunity that neither of us can walk past. Let's make it happen. Before you go, I do want to point out to you that there's a cost associated with not applying right now. I get it, that there are what we at Real Schools call some FODs at play for you right now. I think you wouldn't be human if you didn't have some FODs going on. They are fears, objections, and doubts. Some of the fears, for instance, might be around just that it feels like trepidation to say, I'm not going to work for an education department. I'm not going to work for a government or an independent body where I know that my pay is going to come through on that every second Thursday, no matter what, and leap into a small business identity. Am I really going to do that? That sounds scary. That sounds risky. One of the things we will do is, for instance, provide you with all of the full financial trajectory about what's been going on in Real Schools and put your mind at ease around that. But we do want to also be clear that some of the fear for you needs to be associated with not what the cost of doing it is, but what the cost of not doing it is. As I said, we've grown quickly. We didn't anticipate needing as many people to come into the team as quickly as we have. And what we've found is that we've got quite a few people who have decided that they would like to be expert facilitators, people who we rate incredibly highly. And some of them are already sort of got their name in the mix to start with us at the beginning of 2024, after our next big sort of intake across 2023 occurs. We're looking for somebody to join the team around Easter, which we think that if we get the process happening this term, provides a school with a good sort of launching pad, a good period of time to be able to put aside and to plan so that you can leave well. It's an absolute determination we have that you leave well. But what we don't want to do at this point in time is let you know that you clearly have the option to explore this right now and then, but I'll apply later, I'll get in later. That might be a cost that you pay really highly. Because like I said, we've got people who are down the track. This is a now opportunity. And there might be a cost associated with you of not taking that opportunity that might be a little hard to bear later on. You might find yourself staring wistfully out the window wondering what if. And we don't want that for you. We want the liberating possibility that you've had to be realised. We want you working in the spaces that you're passionate about and that you know make a genuine difference in schools. We want you joining a team that's leaving a footprint on the entire education landscape in Australia. And we don't think that's a smart idea necessarily to put off to later on, to kick that can down the road. We want to encourage you really strongly to step into this wholeheartedly, full-throatedly, and now, so that you don't pay that cost. Hey, I reckon I'm going to leave it there. What I will do is end the webinar slowly. So what I mean by that is I'm just going to sit here for a few minutes awkwardly staring down. It'll look like I'm sort of looking downwardly, but what I'm actually doing is looking at the chat box and just making sure that there aren't any further questions there. And if there's not, then off you go. We're really looking forward to getting your applications. Thank you so much for putting a little time aside, particularly in November on a Monday night. I know this is potentially not the thing that you were thinking about doing with your Monday evening, but I really appreciate and respect that you've given me the time to unpack this for you. And yeah, we're really looking forward to hearing from you. All right, just do the awkward silence thing. Let's see if there are any questions or other than that, I'll let you go. I can see a hand up, which what I won't do is respond to the hand up. Normally I would allow that person to talk, but I won't do that now because I'm really determined here to not have somebody identified in the room. So apologies for that, but if you want, you can write a question in the chat, but you can also email to get any question that comes up for you at 1 o'clock in the morning tonight answered as well. All right, folks, I'm going to let you go. Hang on, I'm not going to let you go. I can go to the Q&A. Appreciate it, RF. Thank you. And agree, in Perth, you're right. Getting the timings right. I'm thinking late in the evening and thinking about getting home. You've probably still got more to do. All right, fantastic, people. Oh, sorry, I'm looking in the wrong one. Simon's already answered. Okay, great. Right, I think we're under control. All right, wonderful people. I'll let you go.